Hello and welcome to the Intel Brief. Today is Wednesday, the 3rd of June. I'm your host Daniel, and today we're going to talk about the US and Iran have launched new strikes in the Gulf, Russia has repelled a drone attack over the Leningrad region, and Bolivia's defense minister has resigned as anti-government protests intensify. So firstly, US Central Command said Iran fired missiles at Kuwait and Bahrain, which were thwarted or failed, prompting US forces to hit back at Iran's Qasem Island in the Strait of Hormuz. CENTCOM said on X that Iran launched several ballistic missiles towards regional neighbors, however, all failed to hit their intended targets. 2 Iranian missiles fired at Kuwait fell short or broke apart en route, and 3 missiles launched at Bahrain were immediately intercepted by US and Bahrainian air defense forces. So what? This is just becoming par for the course at this point, and it's something I kind of talked about last week, that it's likely a continuance of this slow level of escalations as talks continue to fall apart. The biggest issue here is Trump is unlikely to get a good deal, or a deal that he can even save face on. This is something I talked about in my long-form video over on the HM Intelligence YouTube channel over the weekend, so if you want to learn more about why Trump can't get a good deal, go watch it there. And next, Russia has downed 50 drones over the Leningrad region in northwest of Moscow overnight and continues to repel suspected Ukrainian attacks, the governor said on Wednesday, as a major annual economic forum was about to start. The Leningrad region, home to crucial energy export infrastructure and major oil refineries, is hosting the economic conference, which President Vladimir Putin's Russia's Davos in St. Petersburg today on Wednesday. So what? I think this is likely revenge for Russia's attack yesterday, which killed, I think, upwards of 22 civilians. But similar to how Russia's attack went, I think it's unlikely to have a significant strategic effect. Mainly, this, I think, is designed to try and embarrass Russia, especially around the economic forum. You know, if international guests are coming, they're having to move into air raid shelters, or at least, you know, they're aware that they are currently under attack by Ukraine. I think similarly, it does have an effect on the Russian population, who are somewhat sheltered from the realistic news of how the war in Ukraine is going. And if you only get your news from Russian sources, you're unlikely to hear, you know, the truth of the conflict. So I think it also helps there by showing, you know, Ukraine is still fighting. They still have the ability to reach out and attack, especially St. Petersburg, which is a significant target and a significant distance away from Ukraine. And lastly, Bolivia's defense minister stepped down on Tuesday after a month of anti-government protests, 2 government sources have said, marking it the first high-level departure yet under the centrist president, who is facing calls to resign. The election of Paz, who took office in November, ended almost 2 decades of leftist rule, with protesters, including labor unions and groups loyal to the former leftist president, are demanding Paz's government roll back austerity measures and address rising costs of living. So what? To be completely fair, I'm not hugely read up into what's going on in Bolivia, and I don't really have the time to do it this morning as I'm very busy this week. But it could be interesting if this is like a new string of Gen Z protests that are organized through social media. But, you know, just reading that article then, it kind of appears that this is more of supporters of the previous leftist government wanting to kind of go back to how things were before they lost power. However, I mean, that's not really how life works, so unlucky for them. It does seem pretty significant, though. You know, the defense minister resigning is an interesting resignation. You'd think an interior minister or another government minister would go first. It's possible that his portfolio also includes internal security, so maybe that's why he's having to step back down. But yeah, kind of a strange one, something to keep an eye on, and something I'll try and look into further in the future. But anyway, that's been the Intel Brief. I've been your host, Daniel, and I'll see you again tomorrow. See you!